like as an excuse when his parents were about to discipline him.
Yeah.
His name was Jeffrey Hindle, and he said, "But Dad, I didn't do it on purpose," and we misheard it. And so for about 4 months, because my dad didn't want to let us know because he thought it was funny and he'd spank us harder, we would say, "But Dad, I did it on purpose." He goes, "That's what I thought," over my knee. We didn't hear the didn't. That's the excuse from Cuomo. We thought it would be used against us that we, killed a bunch of seniors unnecessarily. Well, now we have to use it against you.
Right.
And hopefully kill all of you, figuratively.
Yeah, right now, if you're Whitmer, you are absolutely counting your lucky stars that you have California and New York governors that are worse than you.
You are shaking in your long stockings that roll up under the house.
And by lucky stars, you mean elderly people.
Yes. Well, that's the euphemistic way.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Referring to.
Because when she's worried, she can't sleep. She counts dead grandma instead of sheep.
I bet she sleeps upside down like a bat.
Yeah.
She looks like that.
She looks like she might.
She's a
bit.
demon.
Yeah.
Well, I think,
Fiery demon.
In the sack. Wait, that's worse. Let's go with yours. I just was trying to cover it up because, demon could be considered some kind of an egregious accusation. She killed old people in cold blood. How about that?
Yeah, that's better.
Yeah, that's better.
And for her
Clears things up.
Even demons might show up. That thing from Pan's Labyrinth might be like, ooh, that's a bit much.
Mitch McConnell?
Am I supposed to carry all of these to hell?
I'm gonna need another handbag. The trend down here is go small.
This is the worst way to see.
where's your crematorium?
Have you ever touched yourself with eye hands?
It seems like it makes more sense to just keep them where they were. Slow news day.
Slow news
This is
day.
what you get.
What were you about to say?
I was
there,
going to
Gerald?
say, I'm not surprised this is happening to Cuomo. The evidence is just overwhelming. What I am surprised is it took this long.
Yeah.
Right? The evidence has been there the entire time, and writing a book about him and saying that he's, Times Man of the Year or something like that for his handling of this wasn't enough to make it go away.
Well,
I'm not surprised.
here's the thing: is they have to screw up, right? That's what happened. Like I said, with Andrew
Massively.
Breitbart, they were about to accuse Andrew Breitbart with the Anthony Weiner story of him making it up. They have to screw up and let a picture slip out. A staffer has to screw up and just say, "Well, we were afraid it would be used against us." Cuomo himself has to screw up and provide receipts that he sexually assaulted a staffer. And then you have people like De Blasio. I'm not saying that this guy is all of a sudden a man of stellar character.
No.
But he feels that he has some cover from the media that him and AOC called for a full investigation now into the nursing home policy. So they didn't want to call for the investigation of the nursing home policy when it was happening, but now that Me Too gives them the cover, they feel like, okay, well now we can actually do our jobs.
Well, they see a sinking ship and they're jumping off like good rats do.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Also, they see a sinking ship. They said, "Hey, wasn't that able to handle COVID patients and you turned it away?" He's like, "That was another one.
That was a different ship.
Hold on a second. I
was busy
playing grab ass." Why is Cuomo sounding? I don't even know what's going on here.
I don't know the voice. I just know that he wrote a book while people were dying about how great he did.
That's true.
Who writes
do
a
that,
book?
yeah.
In fact, like,
You're in the middle of a pandemic going, "How I beat the pandemic." Well, you didn't. What do you
all
know?
the dead seniors
still
wrote the
going.
dust cover.
That's the only reason the staff. That's the only reason we find out. He wrote his book. He called it Mein Kampf. You're like, this is just the names of the dead,
Jeez.
and they're all over 80.
Lots of pages.
And Senator Ron Kim suggested that Cuomo be impeached after the nursing home deaths. By the way, hey, hit the notification bell really quickly if you're subscribed, because subscriptions don't mean a whole lot. Right now, CNN, they're just talking about the Capitol lockdown. There's not been a whole lot going on in the news. So I wanted to talk about, because I realized, I think this happened when we were on break, the official pick for this person, and don't hit the third rail on YouTube, Z.
Doctor.
Or
Yes,
Dr. Z.
Dr. Z.
Dr. Z, if you prefer.
That works.
She has a PhD, a penis-hating degree.
That's fine.
I think we're safe.
That's fine.
Right?
Just
Is that
don't
okay to say?
use biologically accurate terms.
No, I was being serious.
No, that's fine too. Yeah. No, I hear. Yeah, listen, I like where your head's at. Let's try and build. Let's try and build some real momentum into that. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Okay. So it's time now for the diversity hire of the week. You may not know a whole lot about Rachel Levine because we don't know a whole lot about assistant secretaries to anything ever. I don't even know that they've officially picked the actual secretary for the Department of HHS. Have they picked the actual one? They picked the assistant before they picked the actual secretary?
I wonder why.
Which, by the way, isn't a secretary an assistant? How does a secretary get an assistant?
That's a lot.
Wait, I don't. think you understand
Can't
the meaning
handle
of
the
that.
load.
Who's in it? Where does Saucy Don, who drinks too many martinis, fit in?
He's there.
So Rachel Levine is Biden's assistant secretary for the Department of Health and Human Services. Of course, when Z's not moonlighting as Senate Minority Leader, we know that is, yeah. Oh, come on now. That looks, well, Rachel Levine looks like Mitch McConnell, if Mitch McConnell were a battered wife. Like, oh, I'm sorry, like with two shiners. Like, I didn't know you weren't doing dairy. I'll remake it.
Meredith Baxter McConnell.
I'll do better. I'm sorry. Tell me it doesn't. Okay? I'm a child, but tell me I'm wrong.
Dinner must have been freezing.
So here's the thing. It's not that Levine is trans. I want to be clear, because this is something people used to give us flack. They said, why do you focus so much on the trans issue? Well, because at one point they were really pushing it hard. I think actually just for the first time we have more people identify as trans than lesbians. Really? 1.8% of the population.
Sad for
I don't have
lesbians.
this at the but I think you can probably find it at some point or someone in the control room. 1.8% of the population identifies as trans, and I think it's 1.2 now identify as lesbian. So you know what's happening there. People are just confused and they're being told to transition. Because it wouldn't be so disproportionate with the increased number of gay and lesbian, which have been relatively stable from millennial to Generation Z, and now it's boom, an explosion of trans. And it's not that Levine is trans. The reason I've focused on this for a long time, I know, Dave, I know where
I'm
you're
a
going.
child when you say
We're both
trans.
I just couldn't know if it was a Cuomo joke or if it was a Levine joke. Just put it in your back pocket. I'm sure it's going to come in handy.
Cut it off and put it in the back pocket.
And we'll talk about that procedure
go
a little
too
bit
far
too. So
already?
I can, no. We'll talk about the procedure a little bit so we can explain it for you.
Go away.
But people say, why do you spend so much time on this? When they're look, we've spent time obviously on voter fraud. Big tech is the most important issue, I think, as it relates to certainly our job and the travel of information. However, more important than president is if men and women cease to exist, if we as a society no longer say that there are mothers and fathers, daughters and sons, sisters, brothers, and that there's a different way to rear them, that there's a different way to treat them, that they serve different roles in the family, in helping their children, that they can serve complementary roles in the community, that we are inherently valuable and different, which is, as a Christian, what we believe, fearfully and wonderfully created. If we remove the idea of men and women, if we make them fundamentally interchangeable, I do believe that Western civilization will cease to exist. I really do. That is the foundation. It's the bedrock. You cannot have a free country. You cannot have a country with minimal to no government intrusion without having smaller centralized units. So this is why also it's important when people say, well, why is the government and the marriage running business? And I understand. I'd rather we have civil unions than the government, the church be out of marriage. But this is why. Because we understood that with this country, and then I'm going to get to Rachel Levine and the inverted penis in a minute. We understood. You've been to Five Guys?
Yeah.
And got the hot dog and they cut it in. They cut it in half.
Stop! You're ruining the hot dogs.
The burger place?
So they understood. They understood that before federal government, before state government, you had to have the family. You had to have a nuclear family, and that these people had to have some kind of self-governing principles. And that means complementarianism. That means a mom, a dad. And it doesn't mean that single parents. No, look. There's obviously, one parent is better than none, but we're talking about the ideal, the foundation upon which we build society. And I do think that that matters more than anything else, and especially when we also we talk about speech laws, and if you can be silenced or jailed in places like Canada or the UK for using what is undoubtedly 100% scientifically the appropriate biological term, and was the appropriate term in the LGBT community until 4 years ago, free speech ceases to exist. So are you starting to get the picture as to why it matters to me so much? And were you about to say something?
I was going to say it's under attack from every single angle too right now, right? For the nuclear family, it is the bedrock of civilization. You can look back to ancient Rome and see why they started to fall. It was similar situations going on there. And now the nuclear family, it's not saying like, hey, there's an alternative. It's saying that's actually bad. We don't want that anymore. We want people to be on their own now.
Yeah.
There is no family.
Well, let me take it a step further here. This is why this is so scary. Because what we used to talk about that were really relegated to pieces from Vox or Vice or Slate, just go back through the history of the show. Now you have someone who's the assistant secretary to HHS who actually is coming for your children. What do I mean by this? This person is as radical can be, and is the first publicly announced sort of, I guess you would say, pseudo cabinet pick from Biden, because it was a rush to say, look, we have trans. They want you, and this will become policy, and it will become hate speech to speak out against it. Rachel Levine, doctor, advocates putting your children and allowing them to on puberty blockers.
Remember puberty? Wasn't that fun? Wasn't that a lot of fun? So what if you're going through the wrong puberty? What if you're a
that's possible?
transgender young woman, meaning male to female, and now you're getting, your voice is dropping, you're getting bigger, you're getting hair everywhere, and you're growing those. And what if you're a transgender young man and now you have breast development in periods? It can be terrifying. Yeah. So here's 2 examples. So 17-year-old young man that I saw in clinic. We treated him. He was given intramuscular testosterone. He is now in his 20s and he's doing great. 16-year-old young transgender woman given spironolactone and estrogen and transitioned and now is in graduate school in her early 20s and did absolutely fantastic. So,
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah. Must be
If
fine.
you're a man having a period, it's not. Go to the hospital. Your dick shouldn't be bleeding. I'm sorry. I don't mean to
One
be
would
that.
think.
I hope we don't get thrown off for that. But if I look down and my penis is bleeding, I'm calling 911.
Yeah. And also the beauty is that it's an external organ, so you have to go, is it bleeding on the outside, razor cut, or, if
figure
you're
it
like,
out.
if you're a
Could be
homo,
kidney.
Or could it be some kidney damage? Or, oh, you know what? It's actually just an anal fissure.
Or maybe it's my lady parts coming in.
Who knows? And this is going to be taught to your children alongside, hey, remember we taught this when we were to kids? Hey, you're going to notice some changes. You're going to have hair where there wasn't hair before. And hey, your voice is going to change. You're going to start being attracted to women. Also, by the way, your dick may bleed, which might as well just be a vagina, and you may be a woman, and it's all the same, and it's not okay, and it's okay, and it's not okay, but that's okay.
It sounded like to me she was describing what the body was designed to do.
No, but you understand.
But
male,
she said it was wrong.
Yeah,
She
it was
said-
wrong.
yeah, it's
it's
totally
wrong. Growing
wrong.
tentacles also confused because the hair, obviously, Medusa.
Yeah, it was like
Look at Rachel Levine. Look at the doctor too long. You will turn to stone. That's a scientific fact. Now, before we move on to puberty blockers and why they're bad, this is just something that in the same clip that I want you to see. This is how unironically radical this person who is going to have a say in what you can and can't do with your own and your children's health as a legal parent. This is how unironically radical Dr. Levine is.
So if I said LGBT, I think that almost everyone in the audience would know what I mean.
I'm
If
sure
I
there'd be
said
an argument.
LGBTQIAAP, how many people know what I mean? P can mean pansexual, polysexual, pangender, polygender, and there are lots of other terms, two-spirit, and I could go on, basically spend the entire 45 minutes talking about different alphabet soup.
And that's the point. I could spend the entire 45 minutes, I could spend the entire year trying to lay down landmines as I walk backwards in regards to pronoun, and the rest of society just wouldn't get anything done. Oh, well, yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, sounds like a plan.
I now understand the point to all of this tomfoolery, bullshit. I don't know the scientific nomenclature. I'm just doing my best. Dr. Zayas.
Dr.
So
Z.
let's go to the puberty blockers. I just want you to see that because people have actually tried to do takedowns of this channel going in. He tries to strawman liberals by saying LGBTQAI. Literally. LGBTQAI, and then I would say LGBTQAAIP because I saw it at a feminist film festival, and at 2 gay pride parades, and now
be true.
She just added 2 Q's and 2 P's.
Well,
Why not?
AI is artificial intelligence, and this is clearly very real intelligence.
Skynet is not. They're not sending their best, folks. Skynet is not sending their best.
wait for version 2.0. It'll be better.
Skynet has fallen flaccid, okay? So let's explain why puberty blockers are bad, okay? Let me explain with the scientific literature here, lest you think I'm committing hate speech.
Just like Dee Snyder opened a bakery.
If adolescents...
I just got the email.
If adolescents don't transition, let's be really clear here, because they say, oh, puberty blockers. They just say, if then the kid realizes that they're not trans, he can just go off the puberty blockers. Adolescents don't get on puberty blockers, don't go through any transition. Most adolescents and children who claim that they're trans, 98% of them grow out of it. 98% of them grow out of it.
Wow.
Now, I know some of you are saying, well, why you're actually saying that like it's a good thing. Yep. Now,
Very good thing.
here's why. Let me explain to you why. It's a numbers game.
Yeah.
And I'm not even we don't even have a math Asian here.
No.
For those who do undergo puberty blockers, so 98%, if they don't undergo puberty blockers or hormone therapy, they grow out of it.
Yeah.
For those who do, 0%. 0% grow out of it. Now, I understand you're saying, well, that just means that clearly the person who is on mind altering, and I do mean mind altering when we know what we know about the endocrine system with hormones and neurotransmitters, how often they are one and the same. Okay, so in order to be who they truly are, the mind-altering hormones are needed. All right, but let's still use that argument and let's get to the real, to the physical, because people who are transgender are 19 times more likely to attempt suicide.
Wow.
We know that, and it's about like 40 to 43% attempted suicide rate. Do you know what it is after they transition? About 40 to 43% suicide. It doesn't get any better. So you go from a 98% chance that your children will not be in the 19 times suicide rate demographic to a 100%, if you put them on puberty blockers, chance that they end up in that 19 times suicide demographic. Now, I know what you'll say. I know what people will say, the suicide thing. Well, the suicide thing is only because of how society has treated them. Well, not according to that article that we talked about with the 50-year-old playing college female basketball.
Yeah.
Because Z said, when I came out to my teammates, they were shocked. So it would change after transition, right? We're not just talking about barely passables. It would change. It doesn't change.
Yeah. Well, and we've done several shows on this where they're not just talking about somebody in their teens. She brought up these two examples, somebody who was 17 or 18 years old and they're now in their early 20s. Well, give it time. I hate to say it that way, but give it time and let's see what happens when they're in their 30s. We're talking about 5, 6, 9-year-olds being celebrated, being encouraged to be trans. Like it's just another thing to do.
Right.
It's like a toy you buy at the store. Just get that toy instead. Be trans. Go for it.
You can't halt somebody's sexuality. That's what puberty is. It's growing into your own sexuality. To take that away from them and tell them what they are before it makes absolutely zero sense.
Well, I also don't understand.
That's just my opinion.
No, I understand. I also don't understand why. They advocate for this before the age of consent.
Yeah.
You can't consent to sex, but you can make decisions that permanently alter and or damage your sexual function for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Well, and look, somebody who's been suicidal like myself, and even more so as this conversation goes on, I have to honestly say, depression is depression.
Right.
You can't just put a label on it and go, it's the way society treated you. Depression and sadness are two very different things.
Right.
Depression is a mental illness. It's one that I have.
Yeah.
It's something that will make you kill it has nothing to do with it. That's not even a fair it's not fair to say that that's how they were treated because everybody feels flawed and inferior in a certain way. And you are boosting it up by doing that.
And I've talked about this before too, as someone who struggles with depression, which maybe we shouldn't have you and I in the studio together. That's not a problem. And there are a lot of cords around.
I make
Vortex,
Kool-Aid.
yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. It's also important to note American slaves didn't have an attempted suicide rate of that level.
Wow.
Jews in the Holocaust didn't have a higher attempted suicide rate. Let's be clear about that. The only group that does, paranoid schizophrenics. Now, you can't say it. You can't say that it's similar for someone who believes something that is in direct opposition, that's antithetical to their biology.
Yeah.
And by the way, you know what happens? I know this is something, these are the same people who drink from BPA-free plastic, which now isn't enough, so they have to drink from glass, right? And anytime you're at the gym, they have a glass bottle, and you're going there to just get, they're like, no, don't touch my bottle. Don't bring it to the gym, asshat, okay? Don't bring glass, all right? You're not going to grow tits because you're drinking from an Ozark bottle. It'll be okay. But here's the issue. We went to avoid BPAs, to avoid these xenoestrogens right in the atmosphere. And people talk about chemicals. They say, we know that it's cancerous. When injected directly into a 9-year-old boy's ass, however, well, the science isn't in yet. We know what excess estrogen does to the male body. It's not good. It's actually not as harmful as more testosterone for women, but that's not good either, because excess estrogen is bad for women. It is fatal, cancerous for men. We know it. Let's not act like the science isn't in. Just say, look, this is our agenda, and we don't care if we put them into a very shallow, suicidal, or cancer-ridden grave, and then see if people believe it's empathetic. I hate that we are now turning a generation of kids into basically a study group.
Right. We have a generation of parents who have basically said, I have no responsibility to help my kids go through a difficult phase.
Right.
You're feeling that way? Okay, fine, you're trans. You're feeling that way? Okay, you're gay, you're lesbian, you're whatever, right? You were just born this way. That's okay. We'll just deal with it. Instead of saying, hey, I love you, let's work through this.
Yeah.
The most caring thing to do, it would seem, is to say, hey, let's make sure there's a 98% chance that things work out. And guess what? If it doesn't work out by then, fine. If you're a little responsible parent and you want to still let them do something when they're of the age of consent, say it's 16, fine. You can drive a car, you can chop off your penis.
Yeah.
Happy birthday.
But I would support my kid over absolutely anything. But just because he's 6, if he comes to me and goes,
Yeah.
hey, I'm Superman, I'm not going to throw him off a roof.
Yeah. Well, let's see if that's true.
Let's just start by wearing some kryptonite quartz earrings.
See how
Like,
you-
yeah, no, doesn't
do you
check
feel?
out.
How do you feel in the cape and your mother's heels?
By the way, I have those numbers you were asking for. A Gallup poll from 2020. It shows that Gen Z and millennials identify more as trans and lesbian.
1.8% transgender.
So 1.4 for lesbians for Gen Z and 1.2 to 0.8.
And
for millennials.
11.5% identifies bisexual, which means that if it's equal for both male and female, that means that 11.5% of the female population is trying to arouse some guys at a college frat party.
Pretty much.
And 11.5% of the male population is gay. So
That's true, but why are those numbers going up? Is it because
Well, they
all of a
would
sudden
say-
they were
Societal.
they would say it's because society.
Well,
and
40s,
they're-
50s, 60s, fine. 90s,
Not even 60s, for
2000.
crying out
I
loud.
know, but I'm saying like 90s, 2000, 2000. Come on. You,
No,
you
of
really
course
think
not.
it's just people like all of a sudden going, well, hell, that sounds like a great idea.
No, of course not. I
No.
remember in the 90s, I remember being in high school and them reprimanding me for saying, well, isn't statistically, like, if I don't do drugs in North America, AIDS kind of a gay person's disease?
Yeah, but in
Yes.
the 80s, that's what they told us. I mean, we grew up with that idea where, like, look, if Magic Johnson skins his knee, we got to get him right off the court.
Right.
There could be mosquitoes that give it to you. We were ignorant to certain things.
Well, no, but it was political correctness.
It
like,
was,
don't say the gay
Yeah.
thing. Don't say it. It's like, well, now there are billboards. I remember seeing in
Right.
Austin not long ago. It's our disease. Let's take care of it because now they need
Yeah.
to. What's the new Prev pill? The new Prev
Oh,
pill. You see
yeah,
those
yeah.
commercials?
Let me check my bottle.
Yeah. Did you see those commercials? It's just like it is. Just now, it's just
Yeah.
it's every couple is gay.
Right.
So listen, let's just be honest about it. If we're going to be honest about the science, let's be honest about the science. Let's talk honestly. And I don't know why some people. This is where some people say, like, I'm to the right of Attila the Hun. You tell me. You know what? You guys just comment. It's the best thing you can do to help out this algorithm. And like I said, a slow news day, but this is something that really grinds my gears. Is it really more radical when people say anti-science? My position on climate change has always been consistent, that, you know what, we don't know exactly what the climate pattern is. It is possible that humans are contributing to abnormal or atypical climate patterns. We don't know how catastrophic it will be, and I certainly don't believe that AOC has the solution. That's more anti-science to you than penises are a figment of your imagination? I mean, come on. Let's just like, no one's denying climate science. We're saying that we don't believe the 5-page Green New Deal that took me 16 minutes to read is actually going to fix the problem if we really are going to end up with Skynet apocalypse and a skeleton hanging onto a chain link fence. All I'm saying here is, you know what? I actually do think that there are exceptions. There are people who are intersex. There are people who have Kleinfelders who, by the way, push you guys aside because they want nothing to do with the LGBTQAIIP, according to your assistant health secretary here. They don't want to be associated with it.
Yeah. Well, and by the way, we're now saying, okay, all of that's well and good, but we're going to give people who can't even determine their own bedtime the ability to legally be allowed to change
When
their
I
gender.
was a kid and they asked me what I wanted to do when I grew up, I said I wanted to become a woman so that I could be roomies with my brother forever because we lived in a bunk bed.
Yeah.
And I saw that my parents were opposite sex, and I was like, everyone who lives together are men and women. And I'm like, but how am I going to live with my brother when I'm 45? I know! Get the heels! Someone get the stilettos, Mom!
Yeah, this day and age, Dave, you heard it here, right? Stephen just came out as transgender. I mean, we should encourage it.
He just came out as Balki Bartakamo.
So, by the way, here is Dr. Levine's thoughts on psychological evaluations for children transitioning. Not needed.
It still does recommend a psychological evaluation. That's
The
kind
science
of
book, by the
controversial
way.
if you want other types of hormone treatment. If you want need hormone treatment for menopause, you don't need to have a psychological evaluation. If you are a man in their 40s, 50s, or 60s and you need testosterone or Viagra, they don't recommend a psychological evaluation. Maybe they should, but they don't. And if you want a nose job, you don't need a psychological evaluation. But if you want gender confirmation surgery, you do.
Okay, first off, we're saying the same thing, only you're crazy. So first, you just stigmatized ED. Thanks for that. Someone get
Yeah, good
Bob's.
job.
She does love a pearl necklace.
ED, though maybe they should. Okay, hold on a second. I understand where you're coming from, right? You hate dicks, but let me. You think it's more unreasonable for a man who has been sexually active his whole life, and let's say is in his 70s and still wants to be intimate with his wife, but because of age, even though he's sexually aroused, the hydraulics don't work to take clinically trialed medication to assist him in his intimacy with his wife. You believe that should require a psychiatric evaluation, but not somebody who wants to cut their penis in half like the Five Guys hot dog. I said I would fit it in there and invert it and take estrogen,
Phrasing.
which of course would create brittle bones and likelihood of cancer for the rest of their life. Am I hearing that right? Yeah, I do think one requires a psychological evaluation. And I love how dismissive Levine is, by the way, of the DSM-5. Because keep in mind, DSM-4 had gender dysphoria as a mental illness. And then they changed it to the DSM-5. So it's still not enough of a moving goalpost. The DSM-5 now says it's not a mental illness. Gender dysphoria are the symptoms of someone born in the wrong body. But it's still not enough because they say, because sometimes there are similar traits with other body dysmorphias, we recommend a psychological evaluation. DSM-5, which really was bending over backwards to not be hate speech, is still hate speech.
But would you get an...
Oh, no,
That's
no.
the hot dog.
It's inside the
That
doctor.
should be covered in ketchup.
It's normal.
Don't worry, it
It's
is.
all part of the birds and the bees
Okay,
talk now.
You would not get a 9-year-old a nose job, first of all. Let's
Right.
point that out. So that's what she says is a comparison. That's not a comparison. You would not get facial reconstruction unless it was absolutely necessary.
Right.
The problem is right now we're living in this culture where being a victim is the number one thing, and parents want to seem like they're the most tolerant person in the world, so they're using their kids as what I consider to be a form of Munchausen by proxy at this point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think people need to be open and honest about that. Being born gay, being born whatever it is that you are, is not the same thing as forcing your children to not be able to have a normal puberty, a normal sexual experience, and a normal childhood.
Right.
I can't believe that this is even acceptable, and we all have to sit there and go, yeah, she's Dr. Her's right. Like, this is...
Yeah.
What a great assistant secretary.
Yeah.
We need
well,
more.
She
of those.
gets great coffees.
She thinks people wanting a boner are the same as people wanting to lop it off.
You ever seen her operate a fax?
It just is... what?
It's transcendent.
Could you imagine her handing out facts?
She types 42 words a minute. Sometimes her palms mash the keypad.
Here's my impression of somebody looking at a fax at a Christmas party that she made. Oh my god. What is this?
Hey, is Five Guys open?
Can you imagine? So, rewind to like 2000. Can you imagine us looking at this like in a movie? We'd be like, no, there's no way.
Right.
That's not going to happen.
We're all wearing
Come on.
surgical
Well, no, there
masks.
were plenty of people like this in the movies, like in the 80s and the 70s. They were the serial killer.
No, I.
that's right. That's the truth.
That's right. Bill, what, Wild Bill or whatever his name
Buffalo
was?
Bill.
Buffalo
Thank you.
Bill.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah.
If Buffalo Bill came out today, the entire theater would be like,
Brave.
So brave.
Yeah, like be in the mirror going, "Hurt me." Us two.
Yes.
I
We have to
also
say that,
would.
right? Yes, we have to say
Proud.
I as well would. What was
Proud.
that? Hurt me. I would.
that. Yes. Say it again.
yes.
Beautiful.
Yeah, Tootsie.
Put the synthetic penis in the basket.
Put puberty blockers in the basket or it gets the hose.
Put the anesthesia in the basket.
Was she a great big fat person? Okay, that was a little far.
Yeah, that was
Did you
whoa.
see?
Fat
You
shaming.
mean the guy with the great big fat tits? But oh yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to be guilty of hate speech.
Can I make her into a suit? This is my doctor's suit.
Yeah, I want it to be LGBTQQAAIPPS. Suit maker. Can you add
Yeah.
that to it? I believe we can.
Yeah.
I'm glad we've had this conversation.
Schizophrenics, I think, is,
Well, you know, it's not my thing, but I don't want to be accused of hate speech. So yeah, why don't we go to your well?
Little Airbnb.
Let's go. By the way, because seems pretty radical. Puberty blockers. Puberty blockers. But obviously you go, hey, assistant secretary, there must be a resume here, right? There must be a reason that Dr. Rachel Levine has been hired. Let's look at the resume
Can I
because
just
that's
say how
important.
funny Buffalo Bill's Airbnb would be, and it's B&B's Buffalo. Do you want to stay in a room or the whole?
Oh, you mean like the room or the whole house? No, just the whole.
No, there's a hole. It fills with water.
So, but how much for the whole house? If you could end that phrase before the word house, I think we'd be on the same page. I don't understand. Put it in the basket. Air, Buffalo Bill. I have a theme song. Do you want to hear it? I'm really uncomfortable here. It should be, as one should be.
Please sign the gift book.
Hey, did you hear? I'm going to be Assistant Secretary to Housing and Urban Development.
What's an
Say bye, Section 5.
Leave a rating.
Assistant secretary. It's the weirdest thing that's happened in this house.
How do you feel about rent control? So let's go to the resume. Guys, let me get to the resume. The resume of
Tuck that
Dr.
in.
Levine. Dr. Levine. This is the reason that someone like this is in the position to push policies, right? And coming down the pike where you won't be allowed to prevent your kids from going on puberty blockers. The resume of Dr. Levine, well, really all we have is worked in Pennsylvania. And in Pennsylvania, as a doctor, opposed a bill that implemented a 20-week limit on abortions. And ban dismemberment abortions. We have this here from PA.gov. As a physician, my duty to my patients is to provide the most appropriate medical care. This legislation undermines the trust, limits the ability of doctors to exercise their own judgment with regard to their patients. So we're talking about puberty blockers. What's that?
I think somebody's giving us a call.
Is someone calling? Is that Bryce?
Oh, Bryce.
Why is Bryce calling? Bryce?
Oh, hey, Steven. How's it going?
Why are you calling now?
Yeah, I must have accidentally butt dialed you or something. But
It's on a
now
tripod.
that I have your attention,
We're in a show.
we're going to show you a
Bryce.
cool stunt for Brendan's new stunt channel we're starting.
What?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm going to flip it around and I'll show you what we're doing here.
Is that? I don't.
All right, yeah.
You guys,
so
we need to
here
put
we
this
have
on the show map and clear it with
Mr.
me
Lee. We wanted
before
to
we
make sure
Well,
no
this
one on
is-
the
he's
team
going
was
rogue.
This is a
liable,
problem.
So we hired this nice gentleman
Early
here.
on in a show that
Okay,
already
so you
needs
can go
help.
out the car now. Yeah, I'm gonna have Brendan explain the stunt.
Brandon?
So I'm making a new stunt channel. I think a good debut would be this idea I had where instead of using ramps to get air, I'm going to use a car
Don't.
to be the ramp
No.
that comes to
That's a
me.
bad idea.
That's a horrible
And I'm
idea,
gonna use,
Brendan.
Like the angle of it to jump up on it and get some. sick
First off,
air
you don't
on
have
the
time
top.
for a stunt
Cool.
channel. You
All
messed
right,
up an
well-
edit this morning.
We're almost ready to go here.
Don't be ready. Bryce, stop him from doing it. Can you
Cool.
hear me?
I don't think he can hear you.
All right, Mr. Lee, you're all good to
No,
go.
stop.
Start it
Don't let
up.
this happen on air. Bryce, stop it. Bryce. I have no idea. This has got to. No, oh my God.
He fell asleep, didn't he?
Brendan?
I think
Brendan?
Oh, crap. Oh, Brendan, you doing all right? We can,
Brendan?
I think we can set it up again.
It's fine. It's fine. It's
Yeah, we'll just reset it.
No, nothing. None of this is fine.
no.
Oh my God.
Car windshield cracked over here.
Well, I'm not primarily concerned
Yeah,
with
I
this.
guess that's a crack.
Yeah.
Your employee caused the car damage. What do you do? How you pay for it?
Well,
How you reimburse?
I don't reimburse. Your car insurance should reimburse that, Mr.
No
Care.
car insurance. I don't have car insurance. How can I get the car insurance?
Okay, well, listen, this is actually, it's perfect because our sponsor, Gabby, actually, if you go to gabby.com/Crowder, you can compare your insurance plans and save a lot of money. Go to gabby.com/Crowder, and most people save like $900
Oh, the same one.
on average. Are they
I think they should.
are they still there? I don't like where this is. Okay, the point is with
Jeez.
Gabby, I appreciate when I
I
told
hope he's
the
okay.
team I wanted to take initiative and do their own thing, and can't do that.
No, not anymore.
We have a lot of Indians. We need more chiefs. Gabby.com/Crowder. People save like $900. I did that with my car insurance because they
Yeah.
just bank on you. You know all these car commercials, they say, hey, you save like 15%. And you're like, how can they all say that? Because you always save money if you switch plans because the risk
Yeah,
is already
exactly.
built in. All right, let's go back to Rachel Levine. And someone check on Brendan.
No Asian drivers again for
okay.
stunts. Let's just
Yeah.
tell them
He's
that's a
fine.
bad
Avoid it.
idea.
That's just my politics, the idea of abortion, right? 20 weeks. That's maybe a little nutty. So let's go to what Rachel Levine, Dr. Levine, has done in Pennsylvania, how Rachel Levine has helped their citizens. Pennsylvania, by the way, had one of the worst COVID rollouts in the country. right, as far as vaccine rollouts when you look at their plans. And Levine actually instituted a COVID nursing home policy, much like professional sexual assaulter-in-chief Andrew Cuomo, that forced nursing homes to readmit COVID-positive patients. So that's a bad thing to do, right, as far as what's been under Z's watch. What do you know what's really crappy? Is behind the scenes, Dr. Levine, removed Rachel's own mother from a nursing home before instituting this policy. So it's kind of like insider trading with dead Mimas.
Yeah.
Wait a second.
Think about this. In
seems
stating a policy, nursing homes are going to have to take in nursing homes will all have to take in sick patients. I don't want my mom at the nursing home, okay? Can we take her out?
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, exactly.
Wow.
Now gets to tell you that you have no say in your children using puberty blockers.
And that they don't need a psychological evaluation if they want to have gender
No.
confirmation surgery. Do you see the naming?
Yeah.
They're really
Gender
good at naming
confirmation
things.
surgery.
Yeah.
Who got funding to make puberty blockers? Like a scout leader?
It's just like a really scared father.
He's like, is there a way I can keep these this way forever?
NAMLA supported it heartily.
Well, what is the... I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
you're
that
absolutely
I'm-
right.
I don't mean to be bluntly honest.
No, you do mean to be bluntly honest, and we love you for it, and I agree. I think about it, what would be the appropriate use? I guess like maybe if it's one of those like kids with progeria. I don't know, something like that, where they have some sort of accelerated aging disease,
Maybe,
like
yeah.
Charlie Brown. There's a special that was wildly unpopular. You have progeria, Charlie Brown? No one watched it.
Very
No,
sad.
they didn't. There was some good dancing in it.
There was. If a little repetitive. So just some more history. This isn't necessarily super relevant, but we have a photo here of Rachel as a man with when back then, because I can say this, his wife and children. It's kind of hot. Kind of, and then,
Good time.
you
Oh,
have
I
to
didn't
wonder.
know he was Pete Holmes.
/ Jonah Hill / Will Ferrell when he gains a lot of weight, but now is a beautiful and brave Senate Minority Leader.
I understand the transition now.
And used to perform in musical theater. This isn't really relevant. I just thought it was funny.
Was his wife transitioning in the picture, by the way?
Last role was Dr. Scott in the Rocky Horror Picture Show, which I think we have an overlay here. I'm going to watch it in post. It doesn't really matter. I just thought it was funny. Z no longer sings. Z has moved on to bigger and better things. So I just want to hear from you guys. Where you think,
interrupted.
what you think is most important here? What you think is most important as far as the issues? Look, let me be really clear with this. As far as it relates to the United States being singularly unique from other countries. Look, First Amendment, Second Amendment, no other country has it. Not like us. That's pretty important. As it relates to the most important issues, I do think the idea of family being the central building block before government is necessary. That means nuclear family. Big tech is a problem. People who control the entire sphere of information online. And then after that, get the dementia patient out of office.
Yeah.
But those are always those have always been my top issues. It's not necessarily about state district lines. I think that the idea that men and women are actually a thing, pretty important. And even if you don't believe it, even if you don't agree with it, you should at least take the Jordan Peterson position in believing that people shouldn't be compelled to use unscientific language.
Yeah.
Like we've been doing this.
We've been doing this show.
have to.
Just to make sure we don't run afoul of any guidelines
Of the third rail.
that are not enforced.
Beautiful and brave Z.
Yep.
Generation Z was a bad idea.
Speaking of guidelines, the chief of the Cherokee Nation has now said that it's time for Jeep to stop using the name. After nearly 50 years on the road, Jeep was pressured by the chief. The guy's name is the chief of the Cherokee Nation, Chuck Hoskin Jr.
Why don't they just have it so the car doesn't come in red?
Yeah, Chuck Hoskin Jr. is the chief of the Cherokee Nation. Probably only has one word for snow. Chuck Hoskin Jr., chief. I love how he's the chief of the Cherokee Nation, but using the word chief is racist. It's like, hey, what's your role, Chuck? Well, many people call me the chief, but you can refer to me as...
You may have seen me before at the end of the evening when the television's signing off. That was Dad.
So Chuck Hoskin Jr.,
I cry for living.
they were pressured to change the name of its popular Jeep Grand Cherokee SUV so they actually are doing it because according to Chuck, chief of Cherokee,
Chief Chuck.
Hoskin.
Chuck, have you met the chief of the Apaches, Bob? Don't get me started on Comanche Larry.
Yeah.
Oh, he's a character.
Arapaho Carl.
He
they do not
surprised
get
me
along.
with the bone tomahawking.
Runs with
Maybe it's
Chad.
Woodchuck.
So, Hoskin Jr., this is actually from Car and Driver. This is why he demanded it be changed. It does not honor us by having our name plastered on the side of the car. And by the way, to their credit, Chrysler heard the First Nations community and apologized and made amends with the upcoming 2021 4x4 Jeep Grand Scalper. So it seems a little bit tone deaf.
Well, I mean,
I think it looks
understand.
good.
It's a slow news day.
It
got
really
good
is.
aerodynamic.
Are the blood splatters like an add-on, or is that standard?
Well, it no longer comes in red, and the
no.
the stick shift will be replaced by a slot machine handle.
You got to pay him back somehow.
We don't want to run afoul of Chief Chuck.
I love that he's a junior. Like the first time around, you guys didn't get made fun of for Chuck being chief.
Yeah, for
come on,
liberal
Charles.
For liberal white girls, it'll be 1/16 charity.
Yes. I forgot this about the story. Chief Chuck.
Junior.
I mean, it's like, look. First off,
Chief
either this is one of those 1/16 Cherokee
Yeah,
guys
yeah.
who just, elbowed an actual Native American out of the way to
Off a
become
cliff.
chief.
Yeah.
Or it's a Native American who changed my name to Chuck because the white man makes me live this way. Well, if you're the chief, change it back.
Yeah.
If you're the representative, change it back from Chuck.
You're the head guy. Go.
Yeah.
Lead.
It's like having a Chinese man who is our ambassador to China named Newt.
Or Larry.
You
It'd
call
be
him,
funnier
you
with
go
Larry.
back to the Chinese name.
For
That
obvious
makes Americans feel better about themselves.
I'm spotting in pants from puberty blocker boy.
What Native American name? What do you give to Rachel Levine? We can't.
Wind dick.
We're not allowed because our names are descriptive, and we'd be banned from YouTube. So we
It is
just
hate
say one who rides with Mima, who's been removed from the nursing home. We're not big fans of Levine here. But by the way, we are doing an order for the Nation tribe. What would you like from Five Guys?
Ghost penis.
If you smoke this, it will appear and talk to you.
Could you imagine, by the way, people always, I just love, this is that example where you have the left, you have Rachel Levine, right, these health secretaries, and they're constantly looking for a victim class, right? But they also, keep in mind, they also side, right, with Islamists. What do you think the First Nations people would do if their 6-year-olds said they wanted puberty blockers? No. Nantuk, I'm not raising any San Francisco queer kids. Well,
show is so gone.
I think I should be a girl. I think you meant to say that you should walk up and slap the bear as a test of manhood. Go do that and get back to us.
Take peyote first.
Yeah. By the way, hey, Assistant Chief Bob, replace the trained bear. Let's get a wild one out there.
Let's make it a fair fight.
All right.
Chief Assistant Secretary Brian O'Houlihan.
Can we get Assistant Chieftain Flanagan in here to make sure that we... I just Chief Chuck. And everyone just goes on here like, oh, yeah, Chief Chuck.
Totally
They would have
fine.
him on CNN right now, along with
Yeah.
this, catfish with a goatee on the right.
Our accountant's Chief Heilenberg.
And they would just be like, yeah, Chuck, First Nations Chief Chuck. May I call you Chief Chuck? Chuck, can I call you Chief? I'll allow it. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate it. Say, Don Lemon, stop blowing, guys. Not Stelter. Chuck, let me ask you. The peace pipe, is it tobacco or is it weed? At once it was the fire leaf, but we switched to Windex.
Fire leaf.
We huff many paint.
Yes. One of my favorite clips ever. This is when I knew, and then look, we have a whole thing on Hunter Biden, but you know what? We'll do that. We'll do that on Mug Club only.
He's a good man.
That's safer that way.
Mug Club. But this is when I knew I was conservative. People say, well, you change, you grow up. Maybe I'm just stunted. I'm pretty much the same as far as how I see the world. I've matured, I have more experience. As when I was a kid, this is when I knew that I was conservative, okay? And I was raised in a Christian household, and so I tended to have those traditional morals, right? And that, I guess now you would say, tomato, Men and women are a thing. But I would watch TGIF. And I'd always just try and, skip Sabrina the Teenage Witch because it was just Melissa Joan Hart. I mean, that's one. You talk about depression. My first struggle with suicide was when they shoehorned that into TGIF and just Melissa Joan Hart. You know her reaction is to everything is, what? Yeah.
I like Clarissa.
She explained it, not very well. Clarissa explains ghost penis, boy menstruation. I don't know. This all might need to be updated. It's a little bit too much of an umbrella term. I don't know what the Nielsen is going to say about that. So I knew that I was conservative because after TGIF, 2020 used to come on.
Yes.
With, was it Phil Donahue and Barbara Walters? It was Barbara Walters.
Barbara Walters for sure.
Barbara Walters and John Stossel had his Give Me a Break segments, okay?
The best.
And I didn't even know what a conservative or a libertarian was. And I've had him on the show, and I don't think he'll come back. His pick, last time we said, hey, Mr. Stoss, would like to be on the show? Answer, no. Okay. He's that kind of guy. But it doesn't mean he's mad. He's just very blunt. So he did a He did a segment. Did you used to watch it?
I did. No, I did. Yeah.
And he would talk to them like they were children. And he did one on Native American tribes. And he was interviewing. And I think I don't think it was. This was pre-Chief Chuck. And he interviewed him, and he said, hold on. He said, but you are living with electricity and running water. Well, I do that because I'm not saying that everything from the white man is bad, but they still have displaced us and changed our way of life. And he goes, but you're wearing jeans. And as a kid, I was trying to catch my breath, laughing so hard. It wasn't an intellectual response with like some kind of policy. And I remember he had the high-waisted Lois Wrangler, Brett Favre, when he's not sending dick pic jeans. And he just goes, but you're wearing jeans. And the camera shows the jeans. And as a kid, I was like, I want to party with that guy. That's what I am. I don't know what this is, but I need more of that. And I bought his biography, and that's how I knew I was a conservative. And you know what? Before we go, comment.
Yes.
You tell me what your moment was. When did you actually find out that you were sort of leaning right? I guess sometimes people use the term red pill.
Yeah.
I don't know. But,
a good pill.
you can leave that below. And I'm hearing actually before we go to YouTube that we actually have exclusive audio. Okay. Yeah, and here's the problem now. It's because we get the rights sometimes, and then we don't get what we pay for.
Right.
Spotify podcast with Barack Obama and Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah.
We have an exclusive for next week. They're already scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's just his DUI tape.
Can you roll down your window, please, sir?
I can't roll down my window, man. I gotta keep my hands satisfied.
This is a Wrangler. Can you unzip your window, please?
Hey, man, what you want? I'm back to blues.
Oh, you're Bruce Springsteen.
Yeah, I was born in the USA.
Yeah, okay. I just need to see your license and... Wow, you reek like alcohol.
I just had one shot in the dark.
No, it's fine. Look, there's two. It's just me and you. How many did you have? It's okay.
Hey, man, the boss don't lie. I had this one shot. And I hope you've been good this year. Santa gonna come down your chimney, cuz Santa Claus is coming to town. Back to blue.
You are hammered. I just saw you pull over by a church and look at dirt. Did you seriously just have one shot?
I can't remember if it was silver or Patron or Padron. One means dad and one means the boss, which I am.
Seriously, get out of the car, and if you were black, I would shoot you.
I get out of the car. I can't find my feet.
You know what? I don't always.
horrible.
Sometimes
No.
Black Lives Matter has a point.
They do.
That